Busy. So tonight we talk a little bit about, not a little, we talk depending, on training horses in different ways. Many books are written about how to train horses, and everybody that writes a book about that thinks that what he writes in that book is the best you can do. There are many different books written about horse training, and every trainer thinks that what he do is the best to do. All these books, also the old books from the old times, are written with the knowledge of that time. Everybody, and you know yourself, we now are in sport and we are looking to riders, and in general we get attracted by riders that are successful. And the funny thing is that when you look a little bit back in time, we had a rider called Ludger Beerbaum, for example, that was a rider that was extremely successful, talk about in Europe. And that rider that won nearly on every show a couple of classes. And the only thing that everybody talked about was about him. And then his horses got a bit older, and he had the odd rail down, and he was winning less. And then we had Meredith Michaels, that's with Shutterfly and Checkmate, suddenly won nearly a lot of classes. And suddenly nobody was talking about Ludger Beerbaum anymore, and was talking only about Meredith Michaels. And then when her time was a little bit over, it was suddenly Marcus Eining, and it was all about Marcus Eining. Especially because then when I travel a lot and I give a lot of clinics, and you sit at the table and we have lunch or dinner, and then it's, they talk only about the person that at that particular time is the most of success. And I find that very funny, because it also means that training horses is fashion. You have a rider rides in a certain way, he's successful, everybody wants to follow, so we do it in that way. And that changes by the fashion. When I talk about myself, I've probably tried every method possible. The method that was curious about, because sometimes you see things that I do not support, and that I go like, I question that if that is what is the right thing to do. But I wrote many years ago together with Franke Slotak a lot on the shows in the practice arenas, and he actually taught me about being less stronger on the horse. And it's actually funny to say that, because he's a German rider that today and later on rode with a lot of physical strength, but in the time that I was training with him, he did not ride with physical strength at all. And I was far too strong with my horses, too impatient, and because of the strength that I used in my riding, I never got the work done in the way I wanted it. And he sort of taught me, with being less physical, a lot lighter, things were going a lot better. The funny thing is that he, for example, has changed from that. So impressed I was with him in the lightness of his riding, and how many classes that he won and how successful he was. I saw him changing, and I didn't like the change at all. So from suddenly being a big fan of that particular method, I was not a fan anymore of what he did, because what he taught me, in my opinion, was so good, and it made such a big change in the horses that I rode, that I didn't find a reason to change that. He was actually the one that in the flat work supported me or gave me ideas that I still use today. Although what I do not do is try to ride horses down with their head. And the training, every training that we see actually comes originally out of the training dressage, flat work, out of the dressage. And everybody says that the dressage is actually the basic for the work we do with horses. I question that, because I don't believe that the show jumper is a dressage horse in the way they function. Very often also, when you really see how our jumpers are built, the majority of the horses that jump have a neck like that. and dressage horses have a neck like that, so physically they are already totally differently built. And I question if that is asking the same training. I find, even with, let's say, very well-known trainers, that they hardly think about how the horses naturally function, and I'm a bit disappointed in that. Because I see in myself that I train totally different from what everybody actually trains. What I find when I see that the focus on the training of the horses is always, first thing is head down. Only thing they think about. That the horse has to have his head down. What I find funny, because if you see horses go loose, they all carry their head high. If you do the practices that we do, or you ask a question for a horse to go to the canter and you just ask him that question, for example, in anything that they do, and especially when things are difficult, horses get very, very high in front. So trying to get the horse's head down, to me it disturbs totally the natural functioning of the way horses do it themselves. And I'm disappointed that still today, actually with all the knowledge that is available, still the focus of every rider, if you see show jumping, of course dressage, the horse has to go down with his head, but the way they do it, I do not agree, because they pull the heads down instead of they wait that the heads go down. And I'm disappointed in the fact that with all the knowledge that there is, that there's still no change in training horses. The training of the horse today is based on the old dressage books still, and hardly has been any change. Shocks me personally, because I believe the reason for that is that we are dealing with an animal that has a very high acceptance level. What we do to a horse and what a horse accepts, for me sometimes is amazing. We make their life very difficult, and they accept it. With that acceptance we have, due to that they accept it, we have success, and then we believe that what we do is the right thing to do. My career is totally based on dealing and training with horses that did not go well for other riders. In my opinion, these horses were too intelligent for them, because the higher the intelligence of that particular horse, the less their acceptance level is. You know, they are not as easygoing. They just, when the rider in the question they ask for the horse to do, and when it's too hard on them physically, it, let's say, hurts them, that goes to their brain, and they come to a point where they say, I don't want to do it anymore. So for me it's very important is to say, when I'm training a horse, that I look, that I say, what can he do? How does he function? What does he do? What can he do in the easiest way? And because I'm a show jumper, you know, you actually ask the question, what do they really need to do? First of all, you jump with a horse that can jump, right? It's no point when a horse cannot jump to try to jump, because he can't do it. Physically he can't do it, so we don't do that. Depending on the height you want to jump, you need a horse that can do that. If they cannot naturally do it, no matter how hard you ride, how hard you work, whatever you do, you cannot make them jump higher than they naturally can do that, right? Then what does a horse needs to know for us, for the jumping? It's, he jumps, and in the course that he jumps, he needs to turn left, he needs to turn right, he needs to go faster, and he needs to go slower. That's all he needs to do. But when you see training, they back up a horse, for example. Then I go, why? Because I never jump a fence backwards, no? Yeah, because they need to listen. I said, yeah, but Then I slow him down and he listens to slow down. When I go faster and he listens directly and he turns, that's all the ingredients I need to jump. So why should he then learn more? Yeah, it improves his jumping. There is not one training method existing that improves the natural jumping of the horse. Not one. The only method that allows a horse to jump in the natural way is when you respect the way they naturally function. If you want to, let's say the majority of the horses jump hollow. But riders, they say the horse needs to jump round because they need to have their bascule, what we say. But not one does it. But the riders keep trying that the horse jumps round. Naturally he doesn't do it. So first the rider already creates something that the horse finds physically to do. Difficult to do. Why do we do that then? In my opinion, when you train a horse and you make everything as easy as possible it can be for them, you have the biggest chance of a good performance. To me, the importance of the rider in the saddle is really that he disturbs the horse as less as possible. So when you force a horse to go into a frame that is not naturally to him, you disturb him. If you want to go faster and you pull on your rein, you disturb him. If you are going to go slower and you push with your spur or with your leg, you disturb him. Because the aids that you're given are not clear to them. So for me, I've been very observative in how a horse functions. And with all the books that are written and the things that I see what happens on shows in practice arenas, I believe very much so, that even top level riders that win Grand Prix, global tours, whatsoever, have absolutely no idea how a horse functions. If you see the superstar horses of today, the way they can compensate the rider's mistakes, it's in my opinion unbelievable. It was really very interesting. 2 weeks ago I saw the Grand Prix of Brussels of 1988, in which it was the World Cup, and maybe there was one decent horse that jumped a real decent, that you say, wow, what a good horse, on, let's say, between 15 and 20. Decent horse. Other horses would go like beam, bam, knock rails down. So the quantity of the quality of horses was so much less. Today, I've been watching the Grand Prix of Aachen. They come in the ring and one horse is better than the other. The quality of the horses actually today is maintaining riding of riders where they are not forced to improve to get the maximum of the natural ability out of the horse. If I see riders ride technically, and of course how can you say that when you say a rider wins a Grand Prix, and then I watch him ride and I said, technically I find you ride incorrect, and then he wins the class anyway because of the top quality of that particular horse. If you see how riders ride and restrict them by carrying their head in the natural way, what I find even on top level is that the top riders do everything possible to make the life of the horse as difficult as possible. And riders have the idea that when they sit on top, that is what I guess, because otherwise I can't understand why they do it, is that when they work hard themselves, that they have the idea that they worked hard to make the horse perform better. I think what they've done, they've disturbed him. And what I find disappointing is that the top riders do not question that. And that is where, for example, in my way of training, I'm very lonely If I ride in a practice arena, I ride totally the opposite of what the rest does. Am I then the only intelligent one? Of course I think I am, because otherwise I wouldn't do that. And am I proven right? Yes, of course I'm proven right, because when I ride horses that others can't ride or find difficult to ride, and these horses with another way of training where the horse is left more natural, and this horse performs well to the maximum of ability, that means that you're doing the right thing. I think, although there exist so many methods of riding, different methods of riding, that there is only one correct method of riding. And that is the method of riding that totally respects the natural way a horse functions and the natural way the rider functions. And what I see, I would say 9 times out of 10, but it is more, everybody does the opposite. Everybody does the opposite what is natural. If a horse wants to carry his head high, and the rider, for example, is pushing the hands down, it's not natural. When we pull on the rope, the arm is straight. So when the horse puts his head up, the hand needs to follow. But when you see even riders in the ring, they push their hands down, the only thing what you see is the horse is trying to resist and find that freedom to get the head up. But still they keep trying. So then I go like, come on man, don't you even feel that? Don't you even see that? That when you lift your hands 20 centimeters, that it gives the horse more freedom and that he can function easier? They don't even put that question. That is where I believe also that this sport is the easiest sport existing in the world. Because I don't think there is one sport where you can make as a rider mistakes and the horse can compensate your mistakes and still you can win a class. I don't think there exists any other sport. I don't think there is any other sport where you can sit the whole week in the office, your trainer trains your horses, you arrive with your beautiful private plane at the show, and your horse is trained, and you put on the horse and you can ride a clean round without that you have been training in that week. There is no sport where you can be partying on the Saturday night and maybe had a little bit too much, and then still on Sunday you can win a couple of classes in the Grand Prix. I don't think there is any other sport where we can carry a lot of overweight and still be very competitive. So if I mention that, in my opinion, it's the easiest sport there is, because we are dealing with a creature that is giving the maximum of his ability with an easy mind that is willing to do what we ask him to do. And there is no other sport where you are able to make so much mistakes as in the sport that we use. And I find that surprising. And that is also because the horse accepts so many different ways, because we can teach him everything. That is why there are so many different ways of riding. If you go to the practice arena, you see people sitting totally different on a horse, and still it works. I have been looking into a system of riding, and what in my opinion is the only correct way of riding, is what is suitable for every horse. If it's a Shire to a quarter horse or a thoroughbred, doable for a little pony, and for any person, younger, older, lighter, heavier, everybody can do it, because everything what you do on top of the horse does not go against the natural functioning of the animal and the person on top. And that is, in my opinion, why it's the only correct way of riding. Having said that, it's boring, because we don't do a lot actually. You know, when we train here together, and the only thing is what I do is actually talking about the position of you as a rider, sitting correct on your horse. And the moment that you sit correct on your horse goes better, directly better. It's a little pony, it's your quarter horse, it's whatever horse it is, doesn't matter, they go better. So the influence of our position on top of the horse is, and that is where it's always nice when I work with people that are, let's say, beginning or of a lower level or starting, that when I get them to sit right on a horse, it directly goes better. To train a very talented rider that rides to the fence, has a good eye for the fence, is easier. And you guys, when you do what I tell you, you always prove me right. And I sit on my chair and go, you see, you know. Although I'm very lonely in the system of riding, because in general, everybody does the opposite. And that is what I find disappointing. I would have loved to have more followers, let's say when you talk on a level, on a higher level. You know, I have some that say I like it, but in general, on the amount of people that ride, it's in quantity wise, it's not very much. Coming back on boring, right? We must not forget that when we ride is, I said a little while ago, I said when you love horses, you don't do sport with it. Because do we really love the horse? I question that. I don't love them. And I'm honest in that. A horse for me is a tool to earn a living. Like a horse was a tool for the farmer to plow the field. We're not plowing fields anymore because we have tractors, so the horse has become a sport horse. And instead of plowing a field, we are jumping fences, or we do dressage tests, or we do barrel racing, or we whatever. We love the sport. We see something, or now we do a little bit of carriage driving with my wife, and because we love, whoa, I love the vintage carriage. It looks very elegant. We dress up very nice, and we look sharp, you know. And we go to these beautiful parks with castles, and we like that particular thing to do. But for that particular thing to do, we need a horse that pulls my carriage. Do I really love him when I make him pull my carriage in France, hill up, hill down, and like in the heat, and you go like, is that real love? But we do what we want to do because we like that particular thing. We need that horse for that, but we want to do what we do as good as we can. When the farmer needs to plow his fields, he needs to look after his horse, and he needs to feed it well, he needs to groom it well, and he needs to make sure that his horse is very healthy. So we groom the horse to the best of our ability. We give them the best food we know, because there again, there are also in feeding horses a lot of different opinions. And horses have the ability to more or less stay alive on anything. You have 10 top riders, they all feed something different. Why do they do that? Because they get sponsored by a company. And these companies that make food, they think they make the best. And they all want to make profit. So, and riders, it's a sport where we earn little, professionals earn little money. And you know, like when we get offered the food for free, we don't even question if it's good or not, we feed it. Right? But we try, in the knowledge that we have, to do the best we can to groom the horse as good as possible, that he can serve us the best possible to be successful in what we want to do. Is that love? I think it's more respect, and it's making, it's like when I need a tractor to plow the fields now, I make sure that I maintain my tractor, that it doesn't break down when I plow my fields. And that's the same with a horse. It's maybe, that is not nice to say, but that's how I look to it. If we say, I really love my horse, and I talk also with the amateurs, do they really do that? Because the love of the horse mostly is based on his performance that he does for us in the weekend. If he knocks that odd rail down, or if we're waiting for that long distance for him to take any chips, or whatever he does and it doesn't go according to our expectations, you go like, you bastard son of a bitch. We are not so nice to him than when he wins the class for us, when we are competitors. But I think we owe them our utmost respect for what we want them to do. Horses are used to make money. Let's say we produce a horse. I love him. I love my horse. And suddenly they get offered $2 million and we sell the horse. Do you really love him, or do you love the money that he is producing for you? And that is a thing where we deal with in the sport. The sport has a lot of criticism, especially the dressage. The big mistake of the Dutch trainer Ankie van Grunsven and her husband in Holland that started the rolkuur. Big mistake. And I was the first one in our country to sort of got into a, let's say, discussion in the horse magazines, because she was defending her training method. It was attacked by a German journalist, and then by the horse world. Then she started to defend her training techniques, and I said, there you go and make a big mistake, because I truly believe that when you ride a horse and you ride and train it correctly, nobody is going to criticize you on what you do. When we see you ride a horse and we sit here, we see things, and we see that the horse dislike what we do with them, and you see a sort of, they suffer. It's normal that we criticize them. So when you train horses correct, there is no suffering involved. It's just teaching him, even when he doesn't agree, but there's nothing with suffering to do. Then you don't have to defend. So I said in an article, I said, stop defending your training method. But the funny thing is, with that method, they win gold medals. And the whole judging world has followed that method. And now everybody in Europe is riding in that method. And the riders are not punished for that method. So they keep riding like that. And then you have some people, that really are trying to change it. And they're preaching and try to get it. The energy that has been put into that has not paying off for the people that really put that energy in. Because I strongly believe that the preaching that, for example, I did, and I've been hated very much for correcting people in the practice arena for things I didn't like. You get told that it's not of your business. I said it is my business, because we need to protect our sport. People that are sincere and they really like what they do and they respect the horse, so they think about what the horse can do, because they all say they respect the horse. But if you ride them in a way that is physically difficult for them, you already don't respect them. The moment that you respect the horse and you ride them, you are not criticized in your training methods. The ones that want to train a horse correctly don't need my preaching. For the ones that don't give a shit, my preaching doesn't help. No matter how long I talk, what I do, what I try to change. And that is where I'm so happy that I'm 63 years old. Because I've discovered that all that energy I put in is a waste of time. Because on the quantity, you can say it's not a waste of time, Albert, because there is always a handful that will follow or will change. So for them, you have made a difference. But if you see the energy that you put in and the result you get out of that energy, you say it's too little for the energy I put in my personal opinion. That is where now, with the experience that I have, is that, you know, I get less fanatic, I react less on Facebook, I don't attack or I don't react anymore. You know, the last time it was a little while ago. There was an interview with Mr. Morris. He can't give any interviews anymore, so it's a bit quieter around him. But he gave an interview in the horse magazine in Australia, the Horse Magazine, and he made a quote. And I found that quote, like say, I don't totally agree with that. So on Facebook I reacted and I said, when you do the opposite, it's much easier. Easier for horse and rider, so goes easier. The Horse Magazine reacted and he said, we appreciate your opinion, but Mr. George Morris is far highly more respected, including many others, than you are. And I said, fine, no problem. I totally respect that. I respect your opinion. What I would like you to do is to invite all those far more highly respected trainers to come together with horses in the arena, and then we are going to discuss riding, training, and then after the sessions that we do, we all can see what is the easiest for horse and rider to do. No comment anymore. Because they are all scared, because there is not one rider in the world existing that I'm afraid of to discuss the training method. Not one. But they are. You know, if we really have to discuss that, you say what is the easiest and the simplest way to do certain things, talking now in my sport, show jumpers, even dressage, but okay, I don't want to go too far into that, but they go like, ooh, they back off, because that's not what they want to do. Do they need to do it? No, they don't, because with what they do, they are successful. And because they don't think that it is necessary, because they think themselves that they respect the horse enough for what they do with the horse. Right? So when I really look back when I was young, I personally have always been looking, how can it be done easier? What is an easier way to do it? That we all can do it, that is for every horse and every rider doable. I found it, and I'm very lucky, happy that I met people that gave me ideas. They didn't give me ideas. Nobody gave me an idea. I've been looking for the ideas. And that is, you know, like when you come here and you train, you are looking for the idea, because I'm not telling you to come here. You come on your own. So every improvement that you make is your own effort, because you want to be better and you look for a way in which you want to do it. So everything that you learn, everything that you, let's say, add to your knowledge is your own greediness to be more capable of doing the things that you do. But I met people on my way that I asked for information because I thought they could give me that information, and they gave me that information. I felt that that information made me a lot better, that it worked, because if they give me information and it doesn't work instantly, the information is incorrect. That does not mean that it goes perfect straight away. It goes better, it has to improve straight away. Then the information you get is correct. So you look for that. And there were also things that by accident I discovered, like the riding with no noseband. Why happened that? Because I'm riding a horse, pulls my arms out, the noseband was a little old, and the buckle snapped. The moment that the buckle snapped, the horse was suddenly light in my hands. I go like, I could have been cross with the fact that the noseband snapped. But instead of that, I felt something. I said, ooh, took the noseband off, rode the horse without noseband, and that is where I discovered that when it's very strong horses and you make the noseband tight, it makes them even stronger instead of softest. Like the standing up in the stirrup when you slow down. I was riding a young horse on a circle, going well, going on the straight line, always breaks into the trot because I was pushing with my seat. And I was actually physically tired, and I came on the idea that going on a straight line, I stood up in my stirrup, and the horse stayed in the canter. I got it. You know? So you discover things by doing things, but then you have to be willing to feel that, you know. I'm not a talented person, so I have no natural talent in sense of riding. Everything that I do is what I learned from others, or what I learned myself, or what I discovered. It's not something that goes very easy. So I have no natural talent in that sense. Also because I'm not so brave. Like when I have to go fast in the ring, there are people that are much faster because they can turn shorter, they are braver. But when it's a nice fluent course and everything goes very well and I'm good, I can beat them. But when the course is not totally mine, I cannot. So let's say in riding courses, because natural talent, feel for pace, feel for distance, you have people that are more talented than I am. When it comes to riding knowledge about training a horse or solving a problem with a horse, solving a problem with a horse that others can solve, it's hard to find somebody that can do it better. When there is someone that does it better than me, I find out straight away how that comes. When a horse leaves my barn and jumps with somebody else better than with me, I can't sleep. I go, how is that possible? Natural way, preparing, bambooing and all that stuff, I can do that as well, it's no problem. But no, due to the riding technique, we ride and train the horse different, and that horse jumps better. When I see that, pick up the phone and I go like, can I spend a week at your barn? How much does it cost? Because I want to know. And then when I know what he knows, I'm as good as him. You understand? Because you were looking at me at the table a little bit, like you say, you were thinking you're an arrogant bastard because you think you're the best in the world. You're a little bit like them. Let's say you would maybe not use that word that I used, but you were sort of like. But you know, I very often when we have a speech like this, I talk a little bit like that also to make you realize how I think, right? I really 100% think that I'm really the best. And that sounds very arrogant. That sounds, you know, how can you say that you're the best and you're arrogant? Arrogance comes very close to being self-secure. But because I speak it out, you know, self-confidence, now I speak it out, my self-confidence, then I'm arrogant. But I do it a bit, you know, to make you feel how I think. So I think I'm the best. But I keep looking all the time, because maybe there is something existing that I don't know. When you think that you're the best, you can also be like tunnel vision and you think you're the best, you know, and you don't look at it. But I want to stay the best. So when somebody discovered something that I don't know and that works better than what I do, I change it straight away. So let's say, no matter how much I think how good I am, when somebody else does it better than me, I change what I've done my whole life straight away. Because how stupid can I be that once somebody else shows me that what he does is is easy than what I do, keep doing what I do. That is, in my opinion, a lack of intelligence. And don't let me say stupidness, but a lack of intelligence. I've done it 20 years like that and it has worked. Maybe it can work better when you do it his way. And so that is why I talk a bit like that, to explain you how I think. Because wherever I go, wherever I look, my eyes are open to see if there is something existing but I don't know. It is many years now that I have not discovered anything new. Many years. That's why also I have not written a book. I made some videotapes, but nobody was interested, so I closed it down. Because everybody wants to have free information. So they had to pay to see the session, but they didn't want to pay. It was only $10 for a certain session, too expensive. And then I closed it all down. They called me, where are your videos? We want to see them. I said, too late. That's a bit what it is. That's why I train how we train. I also have no trainer's license. I'm not a graduated trainer. Because there is not one piece of paper in the world that represents my knowledge of horse riding. Who is going to examine me about what I know? Because there is nobody that can. So I have to go to a school somewhere to get a piece of paper that says that I'm credible, how do you call it? To teach. So I have to sit down and listen to people or put an exam, and people have not half my knowledge. So how can I lower myself to go through that? I won't do it. And so then they put a course together for people like myself, like, okay, we do a little bit this, and then you fill in some piece of paper and you pass your exam. What is that for bullshit? Because everybody needs a piece of paper. And that's why we lower the level of the people. Now everybody can get a piece of paper. And they can train. What is that? So I won't do it. But that is the reason why I can never, let's say, being a national coach or being a trainer of a federation. Because I'm not credible, how do you call it? I'm not certified. I'm not certified. But that's why I come to you guys, and then I enjoy being here.
Would you mind to answer some questions?
No, I have no problems, and I hopefully have on any question an answer.
Shall I begin?
Yeah, probably, I thought so.
Could you tell us if there's a horse that you learned this really specific lesson from, that maybe gave you one of these insights you never had before, one specific horse?
Now, let's say, I was very young, just married, beginning of my 20s. I had a first owner with a bit of money, and the owner wanted to start a stable, and we bought a horse, and the horse turned out to be a stopper, real stopper. Stopper because of not being naughty, but careful and lack of confidence. And that is actually my first horse that I said, I cannot let this owner down. My experience that I had was very, very little. I could ride to a fence in a more or less decent way, but that was about it. So I had to make it work. And it's actually with that horse that I discovered that I had to ride very precise. And that is also where I started to learn that when we ride the horses out of the same pace, it gives the horse it gives the rider and the horse together the same approach all the time. That same approach to the fence builds up a lot of confidence for the horse. And that is actually what is one of the biggest lessons, is because when we ride from the eye, you go like, one time you see it early, you go like, oh shit, I don't see it. Like, boom, you fall in, it's long, it's short, it's like, but when you ride in a regular pace, it's always in a comfortable, jumpable distance. Even when it's a bit deep or if it is a bit long, it's still comfortable for the horse. And that is actually, I got that figured out on a very young age. On my own, I must say, on my own, yeah.
Toughest horse you've ever ridden?
Toughest horse ever ridden, I'm riding him today.
The bay horse, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
mentally, physically, at the moment. I have one horse, so that's a project that my son rides the horse. Both horse and rider do not really like each other anymore, and both have given up on each other, and I've asked if I can have the ride. I have no expectations whatsoever, but I've been, let's say, looking to the situation, and when I see anybody ride, if it's Rodrigo Pessoa, if it's Marcus Eining, if it's Ludger Beerbaum, I watch it with different eyes, or McLean, or it's not that I watch a rider win a class. I watch a rider that's doing certain things with a certain horse, and I'm questioning then, would I do it differently? And if I would do it differently, would the horse then jump differently better? Because when it's not better, it can be the same, more effortless for rider and horse, then already I think it's better. And that is always how I ride. So when I see horses coming with a problem, the problem occurs, I always look to the fact, can it be ridden differently? And then I think that can be the case, and then I hope that the horse then will get the positive thing out of it and will start to do it again.
So it's the most difficult horse you consider you've ridden?
Until now that has been successful is Tubalio.
Okay.
Yeah, because any moment he had the opportunity, he put me on the ground.
Right, that's, yeah.
He was so spooky, so sensitive. I couldn't be too hard on him. I needed to be very strict, but without being hard. Too tough, he didn't jump. Strict, he was our leading Nations Cup horse in 2013 of the country. So that was the most difficult horse. Yeah, definitely. And also because you start with him from scratch, although I must say that before I got him, he won 2-star Grand Prix with a rider, Tom Brinkman. But then sort of, whatever the reason was, the rider was not riding it anymore, and the horse was sort of in the corner of a stable, given up because of being too difficult. Riders today also now, I can understand it a little bit because competition has become very competitive. Like if you don't have an easy horse, you don't win anything. Expenses are. So to go to a show to knock 3 fences down or what, or to stop or whatsoever. So those really difficult horses, they don't want to ride them anymore. Luckily I had them in my life because it's the only horses that have given me success. And they were affordable for one reason or the other. And it has given me an unbelievable satisfaction to make it go, to get them going, and riding knowledge. And for me, knowledge is wisdom. Not necessarily money-wise, but like wisdom in yourself, in your head, in what you know. And when I see a problem, I have the solution, boom. When there is, let's say, but there are horses that you have something, it's unsolvable. Eh? That can also happen for me. Eh? So with the horse I'm riding now, I've absolutely no idea if I can solve the problem or not. There is a little bit behind in my head that is hoping for it, you know, that if the problem or when the problem is solvable, I will solve it. I will, but it is not a guarantee that it is solvable. Yeah? Where with Lando, for example, when I started jumping with Lando, the horse that won me the Olympic medal, I say the horse that won me the Olympic medal, because I'm very respectful for the horse that gives you the success. Because without, no matter how good you are, without that horse, you cannot do it. You have no chance. When I started him, and I went to the first local show, Irma, my wife, was holding the horse in the sun, talking about arrogance, and I was standing with a group of people and I said, ladies and gentlemen, just a moment of your attention, please. Look to that beautiful creature over there. Look, look, isn't he beautiful? This horse is going to bring Albert Voorn to the top of the world. So much I believed in him. So every fan, so now he started to get better and better, and then the Olympic Games came in my mind, and when I had a jumping session at home, I jumped the last fence, and then after the last fence I stood up in my stirrup, put my arm, and I said, Sydney, here I come. You know, and there were people watching, they go like, he's bananas, this man, you know. But, you know, like I so much believed that he did it, going to do it, that it happened. That was also with Tobalio, I must say. When I started Tobalio off, my son came in, where are you riding that donkey for? I said, do you really think that you're going to make that horse successful? Everybody is sit on it. Nobody has got to the point where it was successful on that high level. And you think, I said, yes. I'm going to tell you something. Next year in La Baule, your father is riding this horse in the national team, and you are reserve rider. And it happened. And the horse jumped clear and four. And my son was very happy, and don't get me wrong. But it's also, like say, it's also a challenge for me when, for example, he says that to me, yeah, then I turn every stone round to make that happen. But to tell you that, wanting to do that, I did the sport because I missed the high level of the sport a lot. So I asked the owner if he had a horse for me. He gave me that horse. 3 years of the sport, 2011, 12 and 13, minus 100,000 on my bank account. I'm honest in that. Because no time to come to give clinics, no income, only expensive. And now I'm too old to do that. So I cannot do that anymore, because the horse is very successful in the sense of as Nations Cup horse, but the money that he won was not enough to cover my expenses at home, my mortgage, today it would be because I have a small house, no mortgage, or you know, like different situation. But then that situation was not possible. But he was my most difficult horse up to today, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Someone else, question?
Is there someone from the past, the top rider that you admire?
Oh, first of all, I admire everybody that has success, because to have success, you need something to make it work. So I've, let's say, respect for that. A life-changing person in my life was Ian Miller, 100%. You know, although I looked for that because I had a horse that I couldn't ride in the way I wanted, and I needed advice. So through Emil Hendricks, actually, he organized it for me, and we got him afternoon session with that horse. I rode the horse, he rode the horse, I rode the horse. And it's actually that he taught me that horses should always go in their natural way. And that for me, I started the day thinking black, I finished the day thinking white. So even when I'm so convinced of something, for example, and he taught me that it was totally the opposite, fine. He changed my life. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He was, let's say, the last step in, there you go, like, wow, my life is easy now, you know? Yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.